It is 12:02, Thursday, June 9th, 2022, and I'm calling to order the virtual meeting of the Los Angeles Probation Oversight Commission. My name is Frankie Carrillo, and I'm the chair of the commission. Welcome, everyone. As we begin, Wendy Julian, our executive director, will explain how those of you joining us today can participate during the meeting. And then, Wendy, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Carrillo. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday. We're so glad that you're here for our commission meeting. We encourage public participation in our meetings. In fact, community engagement is one of the pillars of the creation of the Probation Oversight Commission. And we ask that you please join us in commenting live after each agenda item today. You're welcome to do so, or at the end of the meeting on items not on the agenda. If you don't want to talk, you can also submit your comment in writing. You can do that by sending an email to info@poc.lacounty.gov. And I'm sorry that I have to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that is to say that we, in fact, do not welcome your public comments that are encouraging or inciting violence, in particular, those inciting violence against children or images suggesting the same. And it's disappointing to me that I have to say that at all, but I think that you all know that over the last year or so, the Probation Oversight Commission has taken great strides to really encourage the participation of many people, including staff members of the probation department, people with lived experience, community members, other county departments and employees, parents, and community engagement with those public comments that help us move towards the goals of the county and the community. So as I mentioned today, there will be an opportunity for public comment on each agenda item and at the end of the meeting for items not on the agenda. The way that will work is we'll do each agenda item. Chair Carrillo will introduce it. There will be a presentation if there is any. Then we will take public comment, and then the commission will discuss and take any action. The easiest way is to use the little raise your hand function. Also, some of you are pre-registered to make public comment. We have your names on a list and we'll call on you. So in order to get to the little raise your hand function, you click on the participant window, which may be in the three dots at the bottom of your page, or it may be under the word participants. And you'll see a little raised hand, a little hand that when you click on it, it grays in. When it's gray, that means your hand is raised. If you're calling in, you can also raise your hand. You do that by dialing *3 on your phone, and then we'll call you with your phone number, and you dial *3 to lower your hand again. You'll have 2 minutes today for your comments, unless the chair determines otherwise if we have too many people signed up for a single item. And so our commission meeting is being broadcast live to our Facebook page today and being recorded. You can watch the meeting on Facebook Live and you can watch the recording afterwards, but there's no engagement with users on Facebook. Please follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at LA County POC for more information about our meetings. And we encourage you to invite others to attend. We've also launched a new YouTube account, which which allows you to be able to see recaps and see other content that we're going to be providing. Le damos la bienvenida a todos los miembros de la comunidad quienes prefieren hacer sus comentarios en español. Les daremos 4 minutos y podemos proveer traducción al inglés si quieren, o usted puede proveer su propio traductor. Al iniciar su comentario, nomás avísenos que prefiere hacer su comentario en español. I'm now going to call the roll. Commissioners, please unmute yourself when your name is called. Commissioner Dolores Canales.
Hello, present.
Commissioner Danielle Dupuy is absent today. Commissioner Sean Garcia-Lace. I don't see him on, but I'm expecting him today. So Janae, if you can know when he attends and let us know so I can say it for the record. Commissioner Shay Jackson.
I am here.
Commissioner Samuel Lewis is joining us shortly, so we'll do the same and announce when he joins. Commissioner Don Meredith.
Here.
Commissioner Dominique Nong.
Good afternoon, present.
Commissioner Kain Yamashiro.
Here.
Commissioner Frankie Carrillo.
Here.
And I will turn it over to you, Chair Carrillo. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Now we will proceed with the agenda items for today. Item number 2 is the approval of May 26th and June 6th minutes. Do we have any written public comments or live public comments for this item, Wendy?
I don't believe so. Janae, do we have any public comments on this item?
No, we do not.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve May 26th and June 6th minutes?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Yamashiro, seconded by
Commissioner Jackson.
Commissioner Vice Chair Jackson. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, hearing none. Commissioners, please unmute yourselves and vote with the voice vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, sounds pretty unanimous to me. Thanks, everyone. Okay, moving on to item number 3 is to discuss and take appropriate action on the Los Angeles County Probation Oversight Commission's progress on achieving the goals of 2022 operating strategic plan. The POC contracted a strategic planning expert to consolidate the goals within each of the ad hoc committees, which was shared at the December 2021 POC meeting. The link has been shared in the chat box. And Wendy, our executive director, will now give us a presentation. Wendy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Carrillo. And I'd just like to start by saying thank you to the 9 of you, the commissioners, as well as the Board of Supervisors, for the opportunity to serve in this role. Change is slow out in a large bureaucracy and can sometimes feel frustrating. And it's really exceptional, I think, to be able to have a plan the way that we do so that we can, in fact, track that we have made some pretty significant accomplishments and movement toward the goals of the Probation Oversight Commission. And we're reporting those to you today because we're halfway through the year. So this is a 2022 calendar year goal. And I think you'll see that in some places we probably were ambitious, and in other places we should be more ambitious. So I'll begin just by saying that Jennifer's going to show the screen, I think, with the slide presentation, that the Probation Oversight Commission didn't start from scratch, as many of you who are on the call know, because you were involved, but in fact started as a probation commission that has been in existence over decades, and then work of the probation reform implementation team known as the PRIT to establish a number of goals for reform of the department, which include goals, and I think this needs to be said because it's often forgotten, for all of the youth who are in facilities, but also youth on field services, and the tens of thousands of adults who are served by the probation department on field services. So it's a comprehensive plan. You can go ahead to the next slide. The plan is in the chat, and I'm basically just going through this. I've also shared the PowerPoint presentation on the agenda, but it doesn't say much that's not in the plan. So we have taken those 98 reform priorities of the PRIT, as well as the priorities of the DOJ settlement from 2 years ago and the 2020 Youth Justice Reimagined Plan, and separated them out into 4 buckets, 4 subject areas, and those also are representative of our subcommittees for the Probation Oversight Commission. So all of the areas of reform fit into one of these 4 categories. There's one big exception, which is the budget, and I'll talk about that a little bit at the end, because the budget, of course, impacts and fits into all 4 of these categories. So first is data and research. Second, programs and services. Third, facilities, conditions, and closures. That's specific to juvenile facilities. And fourth, training, personnel management, and development. So each subcommittee has a set of goals, and I'm going to go through those right now. And I really look forward to questions from the public and the commissioners, and not just questions, but also areas in which you feel like the Probation Oversight Commission should be working harder, pushing farther, making more strides, and that's the point of sharing these goals with you. So we can go on to start with data and research. So I think that's on the next slide. I think the data and research is a great place to start because it is a place where there has been both extraordinary successes and extraordinary challenges over the last year, and in particular in these most recent 6 months. So we have 2 commissioners on the committee, Commissioners Yamashiro and Dupuy. This committee is led by Dr. Sarah Gongora, who is our project director for data and research. And there is really only one of the 9 specific goals in the strategic plan that's set up here, and it's to develop a public-facing data dashboard that encourages the sharing of data and is complementary to probation's public data dashboard and sharing of data. So I said there were great successes. There are, and in fact, you'll see attached to our agendas on a regular basis information about the population statistics for youth in facilities on a monthly basis. That is information that wasn't previously available to the public. That's all information that probation has shared with us, and we've worked with county council and been able to share publicly. Even more extraordinary is the sharing of the ProbeStat data. So ProbeStat data is also available on our website, on the POC's website, which is poc.lacounty.gov, and is information that probation had been collecting and sharing internally that is quite honestly very comprehensive and shows a lot of information about all of the programs and services offered by the department on a bi-monthly basis. It's published, and different divisions publish it each month. And it gives an incredible window into information about what the department is doing and some of the outcomes that are being measured. So big successes on that front. The challenges have been something that Chief Gonzalez has actually regularly talked about in public, which is challenges around antiquated data systems, around a culture of not collecting data and tracking outcomes within the department. Both things that he and his leadership team have announced that they are very willing and interested in changing, but facing significant obstacles, including funding, training, and, as I said, the culture of the department and data collection. So we have been working as a commission that has authority over the department in the terms of being able to request such data to push the department to be collecting this information. And there has been movement. In fact, we're very close to being able to report that we have a signed memorandum of understanding for the regular sharing of data. And we've been working on helping the department to collect data that can help with some of the board specific initiatives, in particular around gender responsive decarceration and looking at maintaining the low census for youth. And then, as you heard at our last meeting, looking at data around things like electronic monitoring and pretrial services. So one of the things that I think has become very clear over the last year to me in these meetings, as well as listening to other meetings in which probation funding is in question, is that probation needs to and wants to, from a leadership perspective, do a better job in terms of measuring the outcomes of the work that they do. And we'll talk about this a little more under the training bucket, but a perfect example of that is the work that Dr. Gongora is going to be presenting at our next meeting around our research around the 56-hour work week, and just a lot of questions about whether the department even knows what the impact is of some of the programs and services that they provide because of a lack of data and research on those specific programs. So there were 6 benchmarks in this, and we've completed 3, and 3 are in progress. There has been quite a bit of optimism around what a data dashboard could look like, both for the department and the Probation Oversight Commission, and then some related pessimism around actually getting there. So Commissioners Yamashiro and Dupuy have been diligent and also continuing to think about alternatives to help the department to move forward. So next up is, I don't remember, so we have to look at the screen. There we go, programs and services. So programs and services is led by Commissioners Garcia, Yamashiro, and Lewis, and staffed by Dr. Erica Reynoso and Jennifer Ochoa Garcia. As this is the area that you all hear probably the most about in terms of the work that we're doing, in particular, all the work that we did over our first year on educational programming in terms of evaluating LACO's work within the systems and looking at the other programs and services that are available to youth, in particular in the facilities. Although this committee and this area of work also includes programs and services available to adults in the field. So lots of big goals here, some of which are fully complete and others in progress, around improving education programming, revising policies and procedures for grievances and complaints, facilitating partnerships, referrals, and cooperation between the departments and CBOs. So I will say, related to that second one, I actually feel thrilled about the collaboration between the department and the Probation Oversight Commission staff on this issue around grievances and complaints. You may remember we presented last fall a report on our inventory of the current grievance and complaint procedure. And since then, the department has done a significant job in updating policies, updating trainings on grievances and complaints, and soon we'll be sharing updated policies in that area that the Probation Oversight Commission has had the opportunity to review and make comments on based on the original research that we did. I think it's an excellent indicator of collaboration in a way that we can work together to help the department go forward in a way that that is better for the young people and adults served. Also, this is an area where we're working directly with the Office of the Inspector General, and where the work of Eric Bates in particular, but also the rest of the team over at the OIG, there's been collaboration in areas where the Probation Oversight Commission has not been funded for staffing around grievances, but that the OIG has been able to take over some of those investigations. So in addition to just having policies and procedures, there's also been able to be some investigations of concerns, complaints, and grievances that have been filed. The final point is, of course, the big one, and the area in which there's the most work potentially to be done, which is around facilitating partnerships, referrals, and cooperation with CBOs and other departments within the county. We have made some progress here. Some of that has been through data information requests and finding out who contracts currently with the department and for how much. That's information that we've been able to share with the Youth Justice Reimagined work groups around building a new department of the Department of Youth Development that has a more community-based and friendly contracting process. But certainly this is a place where I think the commission seriously is engaged in learning about best practices, about other programs and services offered in other departments around the nation, finding out how we can support the evaluation of those programs and the implementation of those in the facilities, in the AB 109 program, in all of the programs throughout the department. We can go on to the next one, which is facilities, conditions, and closures. So as many of you know, this has been obviously a hot topic. It's probably the reason we have lower participation in our meeting today than most of our meetings, which is because the BSCC is currently discussing this topic with regard to LA County. Over the last year and a half, the department has been involved in concerns and conversations with BSCC, with the Department of Justice, as well as with significant issues related to the actual operations of the juvenile halls and camps. So the PRIT and the recommendations of the DOJ settlement and the Youth Justice Reimagined goals actually overlap very significantly in this area. And it's a place where when I applied for the job now almost 2 years ago, there was a very clear statement about closing down juvenile facilities in the LA County in a determined number of years. That has changed in some ways because of the developments with the DJJ, the Department of Juvenile Justice closure, and juvenile realignment. But the goals of this subcommittee and this area have obviously been at the top of mind for both the department as well as the Probation Oversight Commission. So this committee is Commissioners Carrillo, Lewis, Meredith, and Nong, staffed by myself and Dr. Reynoso. And we are working on 3 specific goals that are big goals. One, maintaining a low census. And we've specifically been tasked with the issues of decarceration of girls and gender responsive work of decarceration, as well as inspecting all the juvenile halls and camps for safety and compliance. And that's the one area where we're actually required by state law to do this. And one goal that I think has been very successfully completed thanks to the work of Dr. Reynoso and all the commissioners who have completed those inspections. As you've heard, we're on track for our 2022 inspections. That cycle has already begun. And then finally, the elimination of the use of OC spray. That I would list under, as with some of the data collection efforts, an extremely frustrating lack of progress on a goal, I think, for staff and the commissioners and the board in terms of being able to show progress when, in fact, if you look at the reports, there are a number of places where we can actually see increases of the use of OC spray, in particular over time at Central Juvenile Hall. So while there are quite a few benchmarks completed here, I think this is a place where there is also a significant amount of work that remains to be done. And then we'll move on to our final bucket, which I think you'll be able to see very clearly what part of the problem is here. So this is training, personnel management, and development. It is staffed it's served by commissioners very appropriately and with lots of passion with Commissioners Jackson, Meredith, and Canales. The problem that we have is that we don't have a dedicated staff person within the Probation Oversight Commission whose role it is or expertise it is to follow along with this work. So Erica and Sarah and Jennifer and myself have all been attending this committee as we can and doing the work as we can. Certainly, Dr. Sarah has been working very diligently on the 56-hour research, which falls under this bucket. But the opportunity for the Probation Oversight Commission to really dive in to reviewing and updating training content, to reviewing and updating the promotion and reward practices has been limited. I will say Eric Bates at OIG has taken a significant interest sort of in the other side of the promotion and reward practice, looking at discipline, which is of course related to the promotion and reward practices. And also, we're very fortunate in the fact that there is significant alignment here with the DOJ settlement. So quite a bit of the benchmarks completed, those 10 completed, are completed because the department had to complete them due to the DOJ settlement. So in some ways, we were given a little bit of breathing room because the department was forced to move forward with those based on the settlement, and they complied as well with the PRIT guidelines. So that's the fourth and final bucket. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about some things we've done that aren't a part of the strategic operating plan. If you can go to the next slide. So there are three issues that we've spent quite a bit of time on over the last 6 months that are not fully incorporated into the strategic plan. The first and the biggest is the one I mentioned at the beginning, which is the budget. We were able to hold a budget hearing, get some information that we requested on the budget, make some recommendations about the budget suggestions, and we are keeping very close track to the work that the CEO's office is doing on the staffing survey. They're looking at making recommendations for right sizing, I think is the correct word for it, of the department in particular, given the greatly decreased population, in particular of juveniles, of young people. And then I think actually two of the areas of really extraordinary progress that I want to report on are the reports on the ending of the citation diversion program in terms of the influence that the probation oversight commissioners had on the board and the court, as well as the really significant work that the probation department itself did under Felicia Cotton's leadership to move those cases towards dismissal and referral to YDD. And then in another issue that we've been talking about for a long time, but I think have really started to rise to the surface recently around pretrial and electronic monitoring, and thinking about how we can make some similar tangible recommendations around the moving those programs into a place where it fits well into the Care First model of the board. And then finally, I'll just make a comment about the progress. You know, I understand. Oh, if you go ahead and move to the next slide, Jennifer. The staffing of the Probation Oversight Commission is they're amazing. My 5 colleagues are really extraordinarily intelligent and capable and wonderful people. And a lot of the progress that you see in what I just reported is due to their additions to the team. I've listed them here in reverse order of how they joined the team, with Ismail joining just about a month and a half ago. And then we had Dr. Gongora join near the end of the year. Erica and Jennifer joined last summer. Janae joined me, thank goodness, right after I started last spring. And then, you know, I've been here since February of 2021. So this is an important slide because those 98 PRIT reform priorities also included a staffing structure for the Probation Oversight Commission, which recommended and was approved by the board as part of the recommendations, a staff of 19 people. So with 6, I am very proud of the accomplishments that the staff has been able to make. and look forward to being able to continue to move forward and hopefully grow the team. So that's the end of my presentation. I look forward to your questions and you know, where we should go from here.
Thank you, Wendy. And before we get into that, do we have any written or live public comments for this item?
I've got to go back to my script. So Janae, if you can help me with that while I'm doing that, I would appreciate it. Please go ahead and raise your hand if you want to speak as well, even if you're already signed up. I see Jose's hand. I'm just going to look and see if we had any pre-registered folks.
Marcia McLean for this item.
Okay.
She raised her hand.
Great. Okay, so I will put the timer up and we will start with Marcia. Marcia,
Hi there.
You can begin.
Hi, good afternoon. You know, I read through this report and I want to say there are very laudable goals listed in this report and I wish you every success. But from what I've seen by participating in past meetings and hearing the probation officers themselves, I feel a level of frustration on their part. And I know this isn't part of this issue. However, they've stated many times that Santa Clarita, the potential for Camp Scott, is just too far, too difficult to get to go for them and for the actual inmates' families. And I know the probation officers are going to be charged with the safety of their inmates. Camp Scott and Scudder is in a very dangerous area. And I just am not sure why probation officers who have to do the jobs, very difficult job, are not listened to in regards to where they're going to have to take care of these people that they are going to be charged with. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And next we have Jose Osuna. And Jose, I think before he comments, I will say is a esteemed member of the PRIT. So happy to hear what you have to say and where you're sending us, Jose.
Thanks, Wendy. And first and foremost, I want to thank the commission for all their hard work. I haven't been as present as I would like to be in these commission meetings, but I'm very grateful that the work that the PRIT started has actually come to fruition in many ways. What I wanted to really bring to the front, you know, and I want to remind folks that you know, most of these folks that they're talking about, especially when we talk about folks in camps, are children, because we often detach ourselves from that fact, and we want to concentrate on, you know, whatever the probation officers or the probation department are going through and their frustrations. But I want to remind folks that these are children that are under the care of the probation department, number one. Number two, shifting, I want to continue to encourage this body to not forget about the adult probationers, the thousands of adult probationers, which I was one of at one point in time here in LA County. And I'd like to really encourage this body to continue to dig into the training and the development of probation staff. I think that if folks received some additional training and some maybe very different training than the one they've received in the past, that would maybe give them a different perspective on how they look at the children that are under their care in these different camps. So I want to encourage this body to really dig into that piece. That was a piece that the PRIT really talked about and discussed a lot, because we know that in order for the system to change, the culture has to change. And in order for the culture to change, the perspective has to change for these probation officers. And I believe that that will happen if they get diverse training. But that's all I really had for today, and just wanted to say thank you one more time for all your hard work.
Thank you, Jose. And before I turn it back over to you, Chair Carrillo, I just wanted to say that the leadership of the probation department intended to be here today, but the BSCC meeting that began at 10 o'clock is actually still in progress, is my understanding. And so obviously we fully understand that they need to be there. So we're happy to have Jessica Gama here, but we may have to move some things around as we wait for them to be able to join us.
Okay, that makes sense. Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments on this item? And I'm looking over at the raised hands. And while I'm looking and waiting for hands to come up, Wendy, and staff, once again, thank you for all the hard work you guys do. Really, truly appreciate you. And I see Vice Chair Jackson's hand. You're up.
Yeah, thank you, Frankie, and thank you, Wendy, so much for your presentation. I am actually the lead for the Strategic Planning Committee, and I think that we've made, really great progress over the last year. Not only is the strategic plan in place to kind of help us measure goals, but I see it as an accountability tool for the POC. And so it's something that we actually look to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. So to that extent, I am proud of the progress that we've made. I agree with Wendy that the changes and the progress is probably a little slower than we would want it to be. But I do feel proud, nevertheless, of the progress that we've made, given the resources that we have, right? I had a couple of notes that I made about some areas that we could potentially work on to improve our progress. I know that for me, capacity is always an issue. So while there's a want to kind of achieve certain goals, sometimes it's just not as viable or time permitting. And so based on some feedback that I heard, I thought it would be nice to maybe have some alignment between the POC's strategic plan and the probation department strategic plan. I know that Adam Bettino is not here, but I was hoping to get an update on the probation department's progress on its strategic plan, to find out how we could potentially create some alignment between our objectives and theirs, but more from an oversight perspective. Consultants. So I am also a part of the training committee, and I think that specific to our committee, we need someone who can help us create an evaluative framework for training, someone who has the knowledge, the institutional knowledge, right? But also the expertise to help advise us on best practices to help us evaluate those trainings and do these sort of post evaluations so that we can ultimately create recommendations on changes that we can make. That hasn't happened yet, but I would like to see it happen. We're planning for that to happen. I would also like for us to author more opinion pieces or position pieces so that the public has more clarity on where the POC stands on a number of issues that we're working on. I know that we're working on that dashboard, which is going to help us sort of share our progress. I think that's sort of supplements the accountability piece. We want to be able to present to the public what kind of progress we're making. Capacity. I know that we're a little bit short of capacity, but I'm especially interested in hearing from Wendy when it comes to the training, especially what kind of plans we have in place to maybe put a staff member there, or if we were to put someone there, what kind of title would they have? What kind of expertise would we be looking for them to have, as well as periodic evaluation of our plan. So we only revise the plan or update it each year. A part of me feels that maybe there's a need to evaluate it more frequently. Of course, we are always working to achieve our goals in an incremental way, but maybe sometimes there's a need to sort of look at what we're looking to achieve and maybe needing to make some revisions along the way. But overall, again, I'm super proud of the progress that we've made, and I think that we're all working really hard to achieve these goals, and I'm more than open to hearing from others on what they think we should do and what we're doing well already. Thank you.
Chair Carrillo, can I address Commissioner Jackson's comments?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And you're right about the strategic planning alignment with the probation department. That's actually something that had fallen off my radar a little bit. And at one point, a few months ago, the department was discussing the possibility of engaging the same strategic planning consultant that we used. So I was looking forward to that in terms of alignment, and I will follow up to find out what the process has been there. I haven't heard anything recently about that, and I think that's something that we'll be able to get an answer from. That probably would actually fall under Deputy Chief Bettino's area within the department. So I will follow up with him about that. And also, Erica and Sarah and I are in full agreement with you about the consultant, and we are in the market per se for a consultant on the training and personnel management and development work. So those of you in the public and the members of the commission, of course, who know folks who are experts in this area, we're very open to finding the right person to do that work for us. And we do have flexibility in the budget to be able to hire a consultant to support that. And I think you're right that it would really help to move the work forward. So I'm also glad you brought up the issue about position and opinion pieces. That's actually why I added that last slide in the presentation, is that I think that the learning around the Probation Oversight Commission's actions with regard to the citation diversion program this year shows that there really is potential for influencing policy and practice within the whole county, not just the probation department, by taking those sorts of formal positions. So I appreciate that, and I think it's a reflection I agree with. I also want to note that Commissioners Lewis and Garcia have joined us, and so thank you, Chair Carrillo, for letting me answer those questions.
Of course, Wendy, thank you. Commissioner Nunn, you're up.
Thank you. I actually would like to make a motion requesting information that I strongly advance progress towards Goal 3C in the plan, which is the elimination of OC spray. I'm going to warn it's a long motion, but I understand I need to read out all of it during the meetings. So I would like to make a motion to receive in writing responses to the following requests and questions that are intended to clarify and provide important context for data received in OC deployment reports for May 23rd, 2022 through June 5th. I don't think, as a side note, I don't think any of the specific documents or information requests raise any privacy concerns that can't be addressed through standard privacy protection practices. So the requests and questions are as follows. 1, more details on specific incidents involving disruptive behavior and assaults on staff, whether attempted or carried out. Ideally, these details would be shared as copies of incident reports for dates May 25th, May 27th, May 28th, May 30th, and June 3rd, both incidents there, and from Central, May 25th, May 27th, and May 30th. Number 2, for the previously requested incidents and future reports, information on injuries to staff, which is just as important as knowing about injuries to youth. Number 3, the reason for the not applicable entries in the video reviewed columns in the deployment reports. 4, information about any subsequent actions taken after reviews of incidents and youth involved. 5, whether the department is reviewing incidents to see any patterns in the incidents, for example, patterns in youth, staff, time of day, location. And if yes, what are their findings and actions taken? Number 6, whether the incidents of disruptive behavior and assaults, attempted or actual on staff in Unit JK at Barry J between May 23rd and June 5th involved the same youth and or staff. The last one, number 7, the meaning of the explanation if required column and the trees within it.
Before we open up to discussion, can I get a second on that motion?
I can't repeat it verbatim, but I'm happy to second that.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Vice Chair Jackson. And we will now open for discussion if there is any on this motion. Okay, seeing no discussion. Wendy, can you get a vote for this, please?
I will. Commissioners, please unmute yourself and vote yes, no, or abstain on Commissioner Nong's motion. Second it for additional information. And she actually did provide the motion in writing to the commission staff, so we have it in writing and we'll put it in the minutes. I'll call the roll, yes, no, or abstain. Commissioner Canales?
Yes.
Commissioner Dupuy is absent. Commissioner Garcia Lays,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith,
Yes.
Commissioner Nong,
Yes.
Commissioner Yamashiro,
Yes.
and Chair Carrillo.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion passes unanimously, and we will submit the motion to the department tomorrow. And I will actually, I'm not sure whether I heard this in your yes vote, Commissioner Meredith, but there are a lot of relationships between this current motion and a former motion that was approved that Commissioner Meredith has requested. So I'll do my best to collapse them into the same request so that we can get that information.
Thank you, Wendy.
Frankie, I'm sorry, Commissioner Carrillo, I have another question for Wendy, if that's okay. It's a follow-up
Absolutely.
question.
Yep.
Wendy, are you able to give us any update on maybe what internal conversations have looked like around staffing, and maybe if there's a plan to provide additional staff members and what those positions are?
I can. We've made a formal request for 3 additional staff members for the 2022-23 fiscal year for the county. Those are staff members that are focused on some of the goals around community engagement and engaging families, youth, and youth in the facilities. So it's related to the specific goals, but also just in terms of general capacity. And we have not heard yet what the results of that request are, and should be able to respond with what the response is from the final budget within a month or so, and then if not, supplemental budget in October.
Okay. And what about adult services? I know that sometimes we have to remind ourselves about how important or equally important that is as the other issues that we're addressing. Is there any plans for potentially bringing on someone who could help us, focus our efforts on that area?
So within the 19 positions in the original org chart, there are a couple of folks who would be on Erica's team that, for example, a clinical social worker, other people who could very easily be folks who had an expertise in adult services. Also, the community development specialist positions that we did request are specifically focused on people who have lived experience and could be someone who has lived experience as an adult. Rather than the sort of youth juvenile lived experience that we often think about in that category. It's 2 positions that have been requested. So I think we could bring in expertise in both of those possible ways.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Welcome, Commissioner Garcia Lays and Lewis. I see now that Chief Deputy Adam Bettino is on board. Hi, Chief. Okay, if there's
Actually, Chair Carrillo, I think that Adam could probably answer Commissioner Jackson's question off the top of his head if we ask it to him right now. So her question, Chief Bettino, was about whether the department has taken any steps towards doing a strategic planning process, and whether there were any thoughts about aligning that with the POC strategic planning process.
So, hello, everybody. I apologize for being tardy. I'm sure it was announced and folks understand why. Thank you for the question, Commissioner Jackson. It's actually something that's been very top of mind for me personally. One of the things that we want to do better in the coming fiscal year, and it's kind of how we block things off, right? So July 1's right around the corner. We have actually revised our core values, our mission and vision statements. This was work that was done actually a couple of years back. We had some delays, obviously change in management and leadership. But what we did was we worked with all levels within our department to create some new values. If you look at our current core values, it's like paragraphs of information. There's a lot of good content in there, but no one can recite them because there's just too much. It's too dense. And so we've taken those things and sort of tried to consolidate and condense as much as possible. I struggle with a big, arduous strategic plan because we've done this in the past. In my tenure, I think we've had at least 2 different versions of this. These are books that sit on folks' shelves. I don't know how useful they are at the end of the day. So we want to build something that has utility. We want to build something that really is top of mind for folks as as the chief and Chief Fletcher and I run around to our various places, that we are keeping some streamlined thoughts at the tops of our minds. It's something that's shared with folks and everybody kind of understands where we're headed as an organization. If we can be more limber, it also helps us communicate up and down the chain. Folks in the institutions out in the field understand what it is that we're strategically focused on. So we've created a framework. I hesitate to call it a strategic plan because, at least for me, it just connotes a book that gets printed and published with like 85 pillars of success and criminal justice for the next however many years. We're trying to avoid that because, like I said, we've had fits and starts with that in the past, and so trying to be a little bit more limber and have something narrow. So that's something that we're finalizing. Very happy to share as we move along. The other thing that goes with that is a very dedicated and focused communication strategy. Again, when we've done strategic plans with town halls and things like that. When it's too big and cumbersome, it's really hard to articulate exactly what it is we're doing and where we're headed. So we want to have a plan that involves some town hall meetings, really kind of socializing where it is that we're headed in a way that's meaningful and in a way that we can get in front of staff, that we can get in front of our stakeholders, this body certainly, and have those conversations. We want to take a look as well as at what it is that the POC is finalizing and as far as your strategic plan, make sure that we're in alignment. I think based on what we've sort of loosely created at this point, I think we're in pretty good shape. Understanding though that things change and there's a lot of movement every single day, it feels like. So being able to also create something that's malleable over time, things that we can adjust when appropriate. But more than anything, I think the benefit is that it communicates that we're heading in a direction despite whatever fires may arise. We've struggled with that. And so as a result, it feels like in certain ways, I think we've struggled to get our footing because every day, this morning, every day, there's things that pop up that we have to adjust and attend to. But if we have this framework that we're working within, I really believe it's going to help us be better communicators of the vision moving forward and be better collaborators. So I know it's a long answer to your question. Yes, we're working on it. Yes, we want to align with the POC as much as possible.
That's great. And I think we all know that a strategic plan is meant to be sort of like a living document that sort of evolves over time. We're all afraid that it'll become this sort of stagnant thing or this, as you say, this thick book that kind of just sits on the shelf, which is why I love how Georgia sort of formulated ours. It's more of an operational plan. It's action focused and oriented, right? So that keeps us on track. Definitely important to have a plan in place, right? So we can always make sure that we're going back to those missions, values, and things like that. So I'm glad to know that you guys have made, a lot of progress. Definitely important to be collaborative. We heard from a lot of community members on things that we should focus on in our strategic plan. All of that is sort of reflected there. I would ask that you guys share with us those missions, the mission values, and the statement, because part of the training committee's responsibility is to see that is revised. And so that's something that we could sort of review and check off of our list. So yeah, the communications piece, very important, because as you guys are making changes, if we're not aware of it, we're sort of accusing you of not making change. But if you're making those good changes, we want to know about it so we can kind of broadcast it and let people know that we're doing what we're supposed to do. So.
Thank you, Commissioner. Wendy, I see your hands up.
Yes, I was going to recommend that we schedule a meeting of that strategic planning committee, which includes one member from each committee with Adam and anyone else in the department who could talk about that strategic plan in a non-public meeting. So that's Commissioners Jackson, Yamashiro, Garcia, Lays, and Nong. And so if that works for you, we'll put that together.
Fabulous. Please.
Yeah, we'd love to do it. That sounds like a great idea.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. And before I move on to item number 4, well, it looks like there's no more hands for item number 3, so I guess we'll move on. Welcome back, everyone. We will hear now from an update from Chief Deputy Adam Bettino on the progress the department has made with the moving youth disposition to the secure track to Campus Kilpatrick and Camp Scott. Welcome again, Chief Deputy Bettino. The floor is yours.
So I know I will start with the sort of the general disclaimer. The update won't be as substantive as I would like it to be, because there's a few things that we cannot discuss publicly. So just to be sort of as transparent as I can be without getting texts and emails from County Council. We are in the middle of a meet and confer process with Local 685. We've had several meetings specifically discussing staffing for SYTF. Those meetings are confidential, and so we're continuing to move forward with them. We're trying to be as deliberate as we can with our pacing of those meetings so that we're demonstrating good faith, negotiation, and bargaining. The other thing that's sort of that I know folks are aware of and I've shared in the past is that their contract expired in January. So there's separate conversations happening about the larger MOU with Local 685. So we're in this, it's sort of this seasonal thing where we're trying to have these conversations while the other contract is looming behind it. So we are making some progress, but I can't really share specifics without violating some things and then bargaining in public, which we certainly don't want to do. So again, I know that isn't satisfactory, but that's the update in terms of the staffing. Similarly, so when we talk specifically about Camp Scott, the city of Santa Clarita has brought suit. There's specific things that I cannot mention publicly. I do not want to expose the county to any further liability. I will share two things. One is that there's a rather large public records request that's been filed by Santa Clarita, and another that has been filed by the city of Malibu. So we're working through those two things as much as we can. They're massive. There's a lot of information that they're requesting. We want to be as responsive as possible. So we're working with county council and outside council to do that. So now some things that I can sort of share and respond to. So we're still continuing to work with our county and community partners with the youth at Barry J. We have 42 as of this morning. My understanding is there's in fact 2 more who are pretty close to adjudication and disposition. And so it's looking like we'll have 44 by next week or the week after. We're continuing to identify cohorts of youth who would be prepared to move to Campus Kilpatrick. And that's been a collaborative process. We're working with our county partners. We have ARC, Healing Dialogues in Action, and others working with us as well when we make these determinations. The idea there is that any move to Campus Kilpatrick will be deliberate. So we have young people moving to an open dorm setting. We want to take our time and do this the right way, and make sure that we move some young people, see how it goes. We have the next group ready. The way the numbers are shaking out right now, it looks like the first group will be about 4 or 5. The next group right behind that is closer to 13. And then beyond that, we're taking some time to work with the young men, talking through expectations. We're doing some level setting with them, talking with them about incentives and how they want a behavior management program to work, what they think is valuable. So there's conversations about new shoes and snacks and things like that are happening. The other thing is I want to be clear that as the young people move out of Barry J, services and supports will follow them. Actually all of the first group that we're looking at are high school graduates. So we're trying to make sure that we have LA Mission College following those young people, and we're still finalizing some supports for some of the youth who've already completed their AA or may have completed their AA. So we're looking into some options there, and I know that's something that's been shared here in our meetings with POC, that You know, we've had some conversations with UCLA. We're trying to look into some other options as well to determine what may be available for secondary education. And we're also trying to solidify in some of the vocational training efforts. So Campus Kilpatrick has a culinary arts program that will continue, trying to bring in some other partners to do that. So ARC will follow these young people to Kilpatrick. Healing Dialogues and Action will follow these young people, as well as our county partners who will be able to receive. I know LACO too has some ideas about vocational training that may be available to these young people. Security enhancements at Campus Kilpatrick specifically. We have roller bars installed on one of the cottages, the first cottage that will populate. The other cottages are still, we're still looking at installing the roller bars there. We have some supply chain concerns that we're dealing with. We have regular conversations with ISD. What we did a little differently is we kind of had an executive level meeting with ISD to talk to their director, sort of our chief to their director, about what it is that's important. Obviously, as folks know, we have a lot of priority around our institutions right now with the DOJ settlement and some of the other things that have come to light through BSCC as well. So letting ISD sort of share with us, you know, what are the things, what are the actual timeframes and timelines, and how do we work through these things? So we hope that those rollers will be installed in the next several weeks, but we're dealing with supply chain issues, as is most of the country and the county. Shared that. So the other thing, and I know that this is later in the agenda, but I want to address it because it's related to Campus Kilpatrick. So just to be clear that the LA model still will be the model moving forward for us in our facilities. So part of the training curriculum that's already underway, the developmental stage system, forward-thinking model, that is sort of the cognitive behavioral component that we're going to be implementing across facilities. It's at Kilpatrick now. Our young people who've been ordered SYTF are going through the journaling. Actually, part of I suppose the assessment of readiness, if you want to call it that, to move out from Barry J, has to do with journaling and how well our young people are moving through those journals. But in order to expand the LA model, there's some things that need to occur around training at the other facilities, as well as getting our policies and practices in place in a way that's transferable and scalable to the other facilities. So we have every intention of moving the SYTF young people there. LA model will continue to exist at Campus Kilpatrick, and then expand to the other facilities, to the other camps, the other 4 camps, Dorothy Kirby Center, as well as our juvenile institutions. So we've made some strides in that area, trying to make sure that we have something that we can implement across. I'm gonna stop there. I know there's gonna be questions, but I'll stop there. Thanks, commissioners.
Thank you. Wendy, do we have any written or live public comments for this item?
We do. There are a number of written comments that are attached to the agenda, and I encourage folks who'd like to submit their written comment, send it via email to info@poc.lacounty.gov. And if we get it by 5 o'clock today, we'll attach it to the agenda, and we send all those to the commissioners. If you'd like to make a public comment, please click on the little raise your hand button by clicking on the 3 small buttons in the bottom of your screen on the participant window, and then raise your hand. If you're calling in, dial *3, and that will raise your hand for us, and we'll call you by your phone number. We're going to start with those who have pre-registered, and the first is Marcia McLean. Marcia, we're going to unmute you, and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, Mr. Bettino. I just say this with the utmost of kind of humor and respect. You talk about stakeholder meetings, and yet a decision was made to place inmates in a residential area without stakeholder meetings. And then you mentioned whatever fires may arise. I would suggest you don't use the word fires, because where you want to put these inmates and probation officers is a wildfire area where we have many, many fires, and it would create a very dangerous situation for all of them. Anyway, when you as a committee are discussing strategic plans and wanting to make things better for probation officers and inmates, I'm wondering, I didn't see anything where you're talking about safety should there need to be an evacuation. It would be absolutely impossible one road in and out. And if you're talking about strategic plans to make things better for probation officers, I would assume they would be very, very concerned with getting themselves and their charges out of the area. I hope you'll discuss that, because that should be part of your plan to keep everyone safe. As I'm listening to all of these meetings and such, I don't see any consideration for this issue. So with all due respect, please do discuss this and have it mentioned in your plans. And obviously there is no information on the reports that are being made because of the reasons that Mr. Patino had mentioned. Thank you very much.
Next up, we have Mariana Garcia Goloy. Janae, can you let me know when Mariana is unmuted?
She is unmuted.
Okay, you can begin.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Mariana Garcia Godoy, and I'm a resident of District Tree. I'm also a student researcher with UCLA's School of Law Criminal Justice Program. I'm writing because, you know, at the demand of your communities, your board has made a commitment to oversee the transition of youth outside of Barry J. But this move hasn't happened yet, and the BSCC declared it unsuitable for youth habitation last year. And, you know, the public has been seeing testimony from both youth and officers that the pattern of harm has continued. So we're really asking that as the overseeing board that you push the Board of Supervisors and push probation to really make this transformation. Because they need to be, you know, moved to a place where they have the programming and the care that they deserve. And yeah, that's all. I mean, I don't know if I can make a comment on item 5 or.
You're welcome to make a comment on item 5 when we get there.
Sure.
Just raise your
Thank
hand
you.
again. Thank you. Okay, next up we have Angel Macias. I can't see that hand either, Janae.
So, yeah, I didn't see that.
Maybe Angel is not online, or if you're calling in, dial *3, please, and that will raise your hand so we know which caller you are. Okay, we'll go next to Jackie Juarez.
Good
You can
afternoon.
begin.
My name is Jackie Juarez. I'm from AHJN and Leah, and today I want to talk about Barry J. 44 youth and counting are in the compound and are being kept from basic human needs. They're being shackled, isolated, and pepper sprayed. They hardly have any contact with any other humans or loved ones. Months, weeks, days have passed, and we continue to ask for change. We demand that youth that are in the compound be treated fairly, but yet we see no changes. You say you hear us, but where's the change? The humanity. Living in Barry J is unfair to young people, and we demand that there be transferred to Kilpatrick as soon as possible and make youth justice reimagined happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Next up, we have Zoe Rossen. Zoe, you can begin.
Morning, Zoe Rossen from Arts for Healing and Justice Network and LA Youth Uprising Coalition. Today I want to read a poem that was written by Redden Cubas. His artwork is the logo for Youth Justice Reimagined, and the artwork was made while he was on Indigenous land and healing with the Northern Cheyenne community. Redden has since passed. He did spend time in Juvenile Hall and Dorothy Kirby. So this poem is titled Possession. I come from four walls and a secured door. Phone calls once a week because I kicked in your door, lowballed all your furniture in pure gold. So as you watch the snow fall and do as you're told, I'm getting restrained and pepper sprayed. Still, I retain hope for better days. But as long as I'm detained, I'll never face this deep pain. Roots back to when no one took me seriously before boot camp when I curiously booze drank till I hanged around troops who furiously felt hatred towards their own kind, the human race. They stole life from us and voices that are worth more than these old crimes. They ignore us, so we kill them with drugs. I'm made of secrets, every decision followed by regret. If only I can reset everything in my life. Now that I'm far away, I've got a different look. Now that I spend my days just me in a book, and I don't even know if I still have a voice. I want to close by saying there's a lot of healing that took place with Redden that I think is relevant to what we're trying to accomplish. And I'd love to find the space and time to be able to share it with all. He still provides a lot of guidance for me in what is necessary for young people and the type of violence that's happening, and that we have to be able to build community to stop.
Thank you, Zoe. Next up, we have Nicole Brown.
Hi, sorry, Zoe made me cry. Or Reddit made me cry. Nicole Brown at the Urban Peace Institute. I just jumped on this meeting because I was able to have the extra availability and time to see what was going on. And I have to say, this feels like a bad episode of like a bad version of Groundhog's Day. Kilpatrick was designated the temporate SYTF last July. That's been almost a year. And the young people, especially because of COVID, have been sitting in that compound for even longer, and there's no accountability. And all of these conversations about staffing and programming and stuff, these are things that have been going on. At this point, I heard Chief Gonzalez tell the Board of Supervisors at a board meeting that youth would be moved to Kilpatrick on May 1st. And I'm not sure if that's been discussed here, but I really do not understand why these youth cannot be moved right away. And truly, there is no justifiable reason to say why they cannot be moved right away. So I really believe that the POC, please dig in and figure out how to leverage your power, because it's truly unacceptable what's going on here. And the situation at Barry J has only gotten worse. And honestly, moving these young people would help relieve some pressure there. So I hope that you can figure out how to step into your power, because this is truly unacceptable. And it's honestly, it's it's extremely mind-blowing. And the last thing I'll also just want to say is, just lastly, education is extremely important, and I don't believe that Mission College has been providing any quality education whatsoever. So I really hope that education will be uplifted, both improved by LACO, but also high quality higher education, in-person learning with counseling and a full college experience for these young people. We owe them a lot, and we have failed them, and we need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Leah Zeidler. Leah, you can begin.
All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. This is Leah Zeidler with UCLA Law's Criminal Justice Program. I just want to thank Zoe for reading Redden's beautiful poem. I don't think I can add more onto it other than what other folks have been saying, which is that I feel as though the POC needs to take more than appropriate action as what's listed in the agenda. Instead, POC needs to take immediate and necessary action to get these youth out of Barry J and into Camp Scott and Kilpatrick as soon as possible. I am thankful for the commission's work for setting a standard for information accessibility. It has been really helpful for me and for other members of the community to understand what has been happening at the halls and camps. And honestly, like from, to have probation in here, showing that they have no real credible excuses for their delays in implementing so many reforms. But I've really, at this point, have heard enough. As Nicole pointed out, we've been talking about this, having the same conversation since July of last year. And it's time for the oversight to turn into action. We know what Barry J is. It's a prison for kids, for young people, for adolescents, not for inmates. These are young people. This place is burdened by lawsuits, title regulation violations, horrific facility inspection reports, and generations of youth who have passed through its corridors, carrying out with them years of trauma, pain, and suffering. The longer we sit here listening to probation delay the inevitable transformation that YJR will bring, the more young people that we as a community are collectively responsible for that will languish at Barry J. And I'm urging the board to take some significant, or the commission to take some significant action to move the process along. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Next up, we have Danita Beauchamp. Danita, you can begin. Danita, can you hear me? Danita, can you hear me? Oh, I think, is she remuting herself maybe, Janae?
Yes, she is. She's unmuted.
Danita, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. You can begin.
Okay, I apologize for that. I'm driving. Normally I'm not. I apologize. I wanted to say something on item number 3. I wanted to thank Wendy and all of the commissioners that are involved in this planning process. And I know how much work is involved, and I think it's something that goes unrecognized and it's almost like a thankless job. Except for those that are directly involved. The public doesn't really have any idea the level of work that is necessary to get that done. With that being said, what measures or ideas for potential solutions now that we've dealt with a pandemic, is that factored into the strategic plan for both the POC and the probation department? I didn't see anything specifically about that. I know staffing is the #1 issue, as Mr. Bettino pointed out, with the contracts still not completely negotiated yet. How is that going to affect the transfer of these youth? Like the previous callers have all said, that we've been talking about this for almost a year, and real no action is taking place. Now, is that a decision, is the question, is that a decision strictly from the POC, or is this something that has to come from the Board of Supervisors? I don't have enough clarity on that, or it hasn't been explained enough as to who has the ultimate decision. I know that they chose the specific camps, they meaning the Board of Supervisors, but to actually pull the trigger, for lack of a better term, of actually getting these youth moved, whose decision is that? Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Next up, we have Thomas Bell. Thomas, you can begin.
Thank you. Hi. I just want to say with the Kilpatrick movement that, I believe that things are moving. It may not be moving as fast as people wanted to. I was just talking to a gentleman that actually works with the kids, and things are moving, but we have to do it in a safe area. Yeah, it seemed like it's been almost a year and everything, it's taking too long. People want it moved fast, but if we just throw everybody into Kilpatrick, all it's going to do is cause chaos, and it's not going to achieve what we want. We want these kids to go to Kilpatrick, or these young adults to go to Kilpatrick and have everything ready. They come in and it's like if they've been there all year. We don't want them to come in and have to wait for programs to come in or figure out what to do, because we just threw them in there without being ready for them. And it takes a little longer. It takes a while. But, nobody moves from their house real quick like that. Nobody would want to be taken from their home, thrown into somewhere else without preparation. So that's all that's going on right now is preparation, getting them ready. May not move as fast as people want, but it's moving. Just give time and let it be prepared so things can be done right and safely. Thank you.
Next up, we have Krista Newble. Krista, we're going to unmute you and you can begin.
Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay. I just had a question in regards to Santa Clarita callers that continue to call in about Camp Scott and the suggestions that are made. To me, they're really ridiculous because they're really acting like Camp Scott is going to be a brand new camp and that it wasn't open for 50 years almost before it closed for 3. The fire zones, the flood zones, they existed then, they exist now, and that camp went on for 50 years. The real question I have is, why is it a detrimental place for youth to be back at a facility that existed for 50 years, closed for 3, but it's okay to build a multi-million-dollar complex in the same area that the residents that get on this line scream that it's an environmental hazard? I just need someone to make it make sense for me, because in November 2020, the Santa Clarita Council approved a 375 unit project called the Bouquet Canyon Residential, which happens to be located right next to where Camp Scott is. None of these callers mention that. They mention the welfare of the minors. They're not inmates, they're minors or justice involved youth, by the way. And they even have the audacity to talk about the safety of the officers, but you're building a public open space that has hiking trails, recreation areas, public parks, and some houses. It's okay to put all of that there, but it's not okay to return people to be there. It just doesn't make any sense. I need them to think about what they're saying before they say this. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. And Chair Carrillo, that's the end of our public comment. Would you mind if I take a moment of privilege to address Danita's question?
Of course, Wendy.
I actually am doing this because I have Commissioner Nong's voice in my ear because she likes for me to remind the public about these things. And I'm going to answer it from my perspective and then ask Chief Patino to make sure that I've said it correctly. So I can tell you for sure, the question I'm answering is who gets to make the decision about this? Is that the Probation Oversight Commission gets to make 0 decisions about this. We get to, as a commission, the 9 commissioners, you all, get to vote to make recommendations to the board. You are an arm of the board and can make a recommendation to the board to take action, or to make recommendations to the department, but not to force the department to take actions. That's not part of what's included in the ordinance. However, there is another community committee organization that does have some authority here, and that is the JJRBG subcommittee, right? The Juvenile Justice Realignment Block Grant subcommittee that does have some state authority, but also that authority is making recommendations to the board. So that ultimately, I think the answer is, it is the probation department's decision as a departmental decision, just like the probation department gets to decide, you know, whether they're going to open a new building or do a new program or something like that, that would then have to be approved through a budgeting process or whatever process by the board. So I think the ultimate decision is the board's. Do you agree with that, Adam?
Yeah, that's well said, Wendy. It is, you know, as much autonomy and authority as the departments have, you know, we are ultimately, you know, beholden to the board for these larger decisions. And this has been something that obviously they've been actively engaged with along the way. And we provide regular updates to them on where we are and status. In fact, some of this is now starting to go to them confidentially because it's sensitive and we have liability issues and things like that. But no, you're exactly right, Wendy.
That's the end of public comment, Chair Carrillo.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioners, any questions or comments? And so far I see a couple of hands up. This will be directed to Chief Deputy Patino. Commissioner Meredith, you're up.
Yeah, this is more of a query or a comment. I've been out to Silmar twice in the last 3 or 4 weeks, talking with some of the secure track youth out there ranging in age from 15 to 21. And the first time I went out there, they were all sitting on tables listening to rap music. And they said to me if I was just another talking head coming out to listen to them and not do anything. And I said, I'm here to listen. I'm not going to make any promises. But what's the issue? They said, look at us. We're sitting here without any programming, without any structure. This is what we do day in and day out, or we go back to our bunks. So the second time I came out, they walked in, they they're appreciative that I returned. But the same comment was made is this time there was about 6 of them watching a movie on TV. 2 of them were actually getting ready to go take a mission college class. But most importantly, they said the same thing. They said, we never get outside these gray walls. We're confined in here. We're bored. We really don't have nothing here. What is in the offering for us? And Dr. Reynolds and I were there talking to staff, and actually staff has some good ideas. Something as simple as maybe take the 5 or 6 of them out under the grass area there and have their lunch out there. Something get them outside. And if it was a staffing issue, we could look at bringing in the reserve probation officers. But I guess my frustration on this is we've had a year to plan for these youth coming in here. And I walk out there and I see them sitting in there and they're telling me, what do we got looking forward to? Gray walls. Would you like to do this 24/7? Yeah, and so I'm just wondering why we can't get some kind of programming at least out there temporarily until we decide where they're going to be properly located. That's just kind of my thoughts.
Adam?
Thanks, Commissioner Meredith. This is obviously an ongoing issue for us, and it's been discussed at length repeatedly, not just for SYTF, but also for the halls in general. So, our staff are working really diligently to try to bring in as much as possible. As you mentioned, we have had the staffing issues across the board, which are really significant, cannot be it can't be overlooked, but it's just something that we've struggled to get back into place after COVID. So we're working hard to try to get as much in there as possible. The one caller did mention, I think, Mission College, they're providing courses, they're providing counseling services, things like that. I know that Marianne Smiley, who's now the director over the SYTF program, is trying to identify as much of a team as possible. We have case managers working with the young people, trying to get some of this stuff in place and trying to make sure that what we're offering is responsive to their actual needs. So it's a work in progress. We know that it's an area that needs to be improved upon, and we're doing whatever we can to try to work through procurement process, get service providers in there. A lot of what's been provided by ARC and others has been voluntary, so we appreciate that, but we just need to build upon what we already have in place and add as much as possible.
Thank you. Commissioner Sam Lewis.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair Carrillo. Is this the appropriate time? I'd like to submit a motion before the commission consideration. Is this the appropriate time?
It is.
I'd like to submit a motion of recommendation to the Board of Supervisors that the youth that are ready to be transferred from Barry J. Nightoff, Juvenile Hall, the SYTF, to Camp Kilpatrick be done so immediately. We've already all identified a number of youth that are ready. Probation staff, Healing Dialogues in Action, and ARC have all said there are a number of youth that are ready. There's no reason why they shouldn't be transferred except for the politics of union, to be honest. And so I'd like to submit a motion that we recommend to the Board of Supervisors that an order be put forth immediately to have those youth that are prepared and ready to go to Camp Kilpatrick be done so immediately. Before the end, or before, if we could set a deadline date, we've already passed one deadline date, that makes this happen and move it. There's no reason why. There are at least 8 kids that I personally know of that will be great fits for Camp Kilpatrick, that can be leaders, that have finished, some have finished their associate's degrees already and need their bachelor's degrees, and that are leaders and have not gotten into any trouble. And the question just remains, why are they still there?
Okay, Commissioner. Before I ask for a second, do you want to give a specific date as to when you want this to happen? You kind of just floated that out there.
I said immediately, so I would suggest we're in the early part of June. Could we say before July 1st?
Can I get a second on this motion?
I'll second the motion.
Who was that? Oh, okay, thank you.
Garcia Lays.
Thank you, Commissioner Garcia Lays. Okay, we will now just open to discussion. And I'll look at the hands for anyone who wants to chime in. And Wendy, did we get the gist of that motion, just to be sure?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Vice Chair Jackson, you're up.
Sure. I just want to know how readiness is being assessed. So when, the motion is before the board, there'll be some sort of objective criteria that's being looked at to determine who's eligible to move.
That may be a question for Adam, but it's my understanding that the readiness has in fact already been assessed for a number of the young people. It's not the assessment of readiness that's the holdup. Is that fair, Chief Patino?
It is, yeah, Commissioner Jackson. We have young people sort of assessed, and then there's some ongoing consideration that looks at participation in programming and education services, as well as incidents. We know that we have had some larger incidents. If a young person is an instigator in some of those incidents, then we kind of pause things and evaluate what's happened. So we're taking a close look, and then the most important part we feel is working with the mentors that have been talking with the young people, working with them individually, and they've been really straightforward with us as well about some young men just are not ready to go and work a program in this environment. So we're leaning on our partners to make those decisions. Most of the young people, we kind of have a sense of where they are in their trajectory, and so I think as units, we feel pretty confident in the assessments that have been made thus far. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I'm just wondering if the facilities have already been identified and, a fraction of the youth have already been identified as like ready to transition. We were able to move 100+ kids over to Barry J overnight. Why would it not be possible to make this happen for the youth who are ready and not wait until July 1st?
So, again, and I stated this at the top, there's certain parts of the labor discussion that are, that are ongoing. And so management has to make a decision here, trying to weigh pros and cons of forcing a move as opposed to working with our partners to get the move done. So looking at what is potentially at risk, understanding that the young people are in flux, and that's the biggest problem here, is that young people have been, several of us have been through their talk with young people, trying to give them some assurances about what is happening. But management has to decide, understanding that staffing is so problematic across the board at the moment. What is possible should we force a move? It's far better in our minds to be shoulder to shoulder with labor as we make these decisions. We want to make sure that we're doing so as safely as possible for the young people and for our staff. And so trying to weigh the balance of forcing a decision as opposed to taking the time to go through, some meet and confer. That's really what we're weighing here. And so we've opted to have as many meetings as quickly as possible to get to a resolution with labor.
Thanks, Mr. Patino. Looks like Commissioner Garcia Lays and I'm sorry, Don Meredith had their hand up. To you, Frankie.
Thank you, Commissioner. Garcia Lays, you're up.
Thanks. Chief Patino, is there any reason besides staffing and labor agreements that we could not move 4, 5, 6 young people to Kilpatrick tomorrow?
It's a fair question, and I think from my perspective, at the moment, no. But what I will say is one of the other considerations has to do with the current population of camp youth. So there are 11 young people at Campus Kilpatrick. One of the things that we're weighing is how to mix different populations. So there's some consideration with BSCC, which is really more notification, alerting them to the fact that we're moving these young people, this is how it's going to go. So it's less of an approval and more of a notification. That is one consideration, is how operationally does it impact the current youth? We don't want to, we don't want to take away from what's going on there. But the labor part is the big part that we're working through.
Thank you. Commissioner Meredith?
Mine's going to be the same kind of rhetoric I had a few minutes ago. The 8 that, Commissioner Lewis is talking about are probably the same 8 that I'm talking about that are probably ready to transition. The timeline, we're talking at the end of the month here. We've had a year to plan for this. I would just like to know how long would it really take for us to move those 8 to that location? And is that location going to be ready? I guess I'm looking for a number here, 30 days, 60, 90 kind of thing, Adam. And it was probably a burden to put on you, but it has been over a year to kind of plan.
Understood. So the timing, again, we believe that we have services and supports ready and available now. The issue is, goes back to, in part, do we use existing staffing at Campus Kilpatrick? Do we, there's a longer term plan to staff this appropriately. You've heard me talk about capacity and what we think it may be. We've had some conversations with DJJ within a year, how much more the population is going to grow. So there's some considerations about existing staff versus trying to do some recruitment. It really does, though. It hinges on this. We want to be collaborative with our labor partners. And so the readiness, it makes it really hard, Commissioner Meredith, to come up with a hard and fast date. We are meeting again, I believe, next week or quickly the week after to have another conversation about where we are and how to get this thing moving forward. So management's continuing to come to the table, labor's continuing to come to the table. It's taking too long. So we're trying to expedite as much as possible at this point. But in terms of readiness of the facility, we believe the facility is ready.
Okay, I guess my follow-up on the labor issues, and I come from a labor background as well as a management background, is negotiations could go on forever. I know how labor negotiations can go. And that is not satisfactory for the benefit of the youth. So there has to be some kind of compromise here where maybe we have some people that are willingly to go there until their labor contracts with it. Yeah, we'll go over there and do this. We only need X number of people to volunteer to step up. And, to my friends in the labor part, I understand that, but this could go on for a long time. So it's not fair to the youth if we're trying to really try and rehabilitate them. I'm off my soapbox.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Canales, you're up.
Hi, thank you so much, Commissioner Carrillo. I'm more, for the last few meetings in the past, it's been Chief Deputy Fletcher that has mentioned, working very closely with ARC, with Young Women's Freedom Center, Healing Dialogue and Action, as far as the moves and everything go. And then today again mentioned, and I know several members of the commissioners are with ARC, but I'm just wondering, what does working very closely mean? From what Commissioner Lewis's comment, it seems like you create a list of those ready. So do you, Healing Dialogue and Action, and Young Women's Freedom Center all come up with a list of which ARC I know has been going in with a personal relationship for years. I know these youth, every single weekend you're there with them. So I can see how you are able to see the changes in individuals and everything. And these lists of the ready, the worthy, right, of the move. But I'm more concerned with the unworthy or the not ready, and what is being done for them, and what kind of care are they given and treatment are they given. Especially, I will say, this is me talking as a person and not as a commissioner. When I've heard comments of they get rewarded with food, the good ones, and then the bad ones don't get the pizzas and everything, I feel that is abusive and traumatizing. But that's just me. But so I'm just really concerned about the not ready and what extra care is being done for them.
So to try to answer your question, Commissioner Canales, we're working really closly with ARC and HDA across the board here. We're not, so in other words, probation isn't saying, okay, here's the list, what do you guys think? There's a lot of work that goes into assessing and making sure that we're all working with each individual young person to have them be as successful as possible.
Yes,
What we know though,
it sounds like they're taking part in creating the ready list. I'm not saying it's probation creating the ready list. It seems like the nonprofit organizations are deeming who's ready.
yes. So they're helping us along the way, along with LACO and along with Department of Mental Health and our other partners who are there. And so part of it is responsiveness to programming and services. Part of it, we know we have, some tension amongst some of the young people who are involved in some physical altercations and things like that as well. And so trying to address that behavior and just trying to, I think one of the things now that we have a manager and some case managers working directly with this population on a daily basis, there's been a really good opportunity to sort of set expectations and talk through, what it is that the program is going to look like moving forward, what's available to them, trying to talk through for all of the young people, those who may be ready to move on and those who aren't, to talk through, hey, we want to make sure that we understand what the expectations are, that we want to make sure that and again, I continue to hear these stories, and it's unacceptable. Young people just sitting around listening, to hip hop or whatever else, or just sitting around playing violent video games, these types of things that we continue to hear about. It's unacceptable. The department is aware, and we're really working hard to move away from it. And so trying to give young people hope, trying to give people an opportunity for more. And so, at this point, when folks, lots of people come to us and say, hey, I have this idea for this program, that program, we'll take all the help we can get. We know that these young people need more and as many supports as possible. And so, we're open to and ready and willing to work with folks who want to work with these young people. And that goes for our staff as well. We've had staff who have volunteered to be case managers at Barry J and step up. We have staff who want to go and follow the young people wherever they may go and continue to provide services. So, we want to be as open and collaborative as possible. This is, and I've said this before too, I know we've been at this for some time, but it's a new program. This is new for the county. So we really hope that we can continue to build something that is transformational for these young people.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson, see your hands up again.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't know how viable this is as a solution, but I'm wondering if it would be possible, for the sake of getting the youth there sooner, to assemble like a temporary task force. I know that SEO, and some might be opposed to this because they can have a threatening presence, and maybe that could be sort of thought through for the sake of just having bodies kind of in the gap to aid any safety measures that management has in place. But is that a possible solution if we were to, have youth move over and maybe have like a task force support that transition temporarily?
So I think, honestly, we're convinced that with the staff who we have providing case management services and with our partners, we should be able to pull this off in a safe way, understanding what the expectations are too. We want to do it deliberately so that we can kind of gauge responsiveness to the new environment. How are young people adjusting, and do we have enough services and supports in there? We hadn't thought through like a specific task force, and part of that is because we believe, once we can have a firm agreement in place with labor, that we're going to get volunteers who want to work with this population, because there's been enough conversations. You all have had conversations with these folks on your visits. The folks that are already working with these young people who know them. Unfortunately, many of these young people have kind of been through our system, so they have built relationships with some of our staff. So I don't know that it would get to that point. We're certainly open to any suggestions to make it happen. But once we get this labor agreement done, I think we're in a pretty good position to move forward fairly quickly too. I don't know that it would take 6 more weeks after that. I think we can make a move fairly quickly, especially with the first cohort.
Wendy, can you read back the motion before we get a vote?
Yes, and I'll ask Commissioner Lewis just to make sure that I have this captured correctly. Sorry, I had it open, and it says recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the youth disposition to the secure track be transferred immediately with a timeline of July 1st or before to Campus Kilpatrick. And actually, I'm sorry, that is those who are, I'm missing the word ready. So it's recommend to the Board of Supervisors that before July 1st, those youth who have already been determined ready be moved to Campus Kilpatrick. Does that sound right, Commissioner Lewis?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Commissioner, okay, all the hands are down. Okay, Wendy, can you call a roll, please?
I'm sorry, I would like to have a little bit more discussion.
Absolutely. I just didn't see your hand.
Yeah, well, I was putting it up and down and up.
All right.
So I had one hesitation before I seconded this that I think it's worth discussing before we have the vote. And that is what Chief Patino brought up about the idea that the department is already struggling staffing the juvenile facilities, and that a too heavy-handed approach could upset that. So I did listen into the BSCC meeting earlier today where Chief Gonzalez said that 48% of the juvenile detention facility staff don't show up on average every day. That in any other industry would be, I don't know, an illegal work action, a wildcat strike. The fact that labor has not been able to, and I don't think the union is organizing a wildcat strike. I think it's happening because they are not effectively representing the staff. And I, like Don, I also come from a labor background. I was an AFL-CIO organizer trained and worked as a field rep and a staff organizer for many years, was a rank and file leader when I was a public employee. But so I worked on one contract that did take 10 years. So when we say it's going to take a long time, right? 10 years is the longest I've seen. So I don't want to take a heavy-handed approach, but I don't think piloting 4 people and showing that we're serious about making progress at the same time as labor negotiations, like I don't think anything less than that is acceptable at this point. Right? We're not trying to rewrite the contract. We're trying to pilot a new program, and that pilot needs to happen simultaneously to the meet and confer. And I think just what we've been seeing for the last couple months, I don't think we can do anything less.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Commissioner Canales, is that your hand that's still up? Just to be sure, let me look at the board one more time.
My hand raise feature is not working, and so I'm not sure what's
I
happening.
see a green check mark, so
Yeah, I don't know how to make it go away now, though. Sorry.
So let me look one more time. Any other hands? Okay, Wendy. Oh,
I'm sorry.
That's a real hand. Okay, yes, please.
Yeah, I was trying to push the button. So Commissioner Garcia, does that mean that you would be amending the motion to maybe identify a certain number of youth, or maybe include the pilot language in there so they understand the intention?
I did intend that because I think saying that the number that are ready, that's the number we're talking about. I wouldn't be opposed to adding that in. I was really just trying to talk all of you into voting yes.
Well, I'm in favor. I just want to make sure that we're as specific as possible. And I think that if we have something in there that shows that we're trying to make a good faith move with a smaller number of youth, an effort to prove that this is something that will work, that might be more favorable for us. So I would like to maybe add some language in there to reflect that. But Commissioner Lewis, this is your motion, so feel free to do as you see fit.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. What I would suggest, I'm not opposed to having specific language saying, say 8 to 10 youth, and just for clarity, when I say ready, I mean ready. Like, in other words, there have been fights, and these are the kids that are the young people that don't participate, would literally walk away, or say won't come out of their cell or go into their cell just to avoid these things. And these are some, like, literally some of the young people that have attempted to be peacekeepers. in these instances. And so, like, and there are quite a few in terms of, and I agree with you, Commissioner Canales. We provide services to all of the youth, all of them. And I don't see any youth that are bad. I see youth that misbehave, but they're not bad, so to speak. And so we're working to prepare all of them to be able to eventually get to Kilpatrick and come home ready. The groups that we look at and vet are the young people that have made that decision that they don't want to be involved in any of the things. They do want to get home. They do want to program. And sometimes you have young people that are kind of on the fence. And as they see this group move forward, I am certain that they'll say, you know what? We're hearing all this great stuff they're doing at Camp Kilpatrick. I want the same thing. And that will help them align and make those decisions for themselves.
Commissioner Meredith, you're up.
Yeah, I was going to agree with Commissioner Lewis. I think that, as a pilot program, we start out with, 6 to 8 to 10 max in this pilot program to kind of kick it off. And as he points out, it does show to the others that, yeah, if we get it together, we too can go into that program. And hopefully by then we've negotiated everybody's happiness.
Commissioner Nung.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm off camera, internet weakness. So I'm sort of with Commissioner Jackson on some clarity, and I hear different numbers being given as far as how many are ready. I hear 8, I hear 4 to 5, and I'm wondering, I'm not quite sure if it's one. I would want to know if we have clarity on how many have been identified, because then I can think the motion can say for youth that have already been identified as of, June 9th, 2022, and give that number. Those are my thoughts on that one, but.
But, do we have an actual number that the department has deemed already? Not ARC, not Healing Dialogue in Action, but the department or experts? I assume it's you guys.
So in terms of cohorts, the first would be 4 at this moment, and the second is 13. But I will say, and just as a recommendation, part of the conversation that is ongoing, I'll just say hard and fast numbers make it a little bit difficult because folks will hold us to that. And so ranges are helpful. This is just a recommendation. Ranges are helpful. Identifying sort of, 5 to 15, 5 to 10, things like that are helpful, because hard and fast folks tend to stick to that, the hard and fast number. Again, just a recommendation thing.
Commissioner Yamashiro, you're up.
Thank you. I just wanted a clarification, maybe from Commissioner Leah's or anyone who wants to chime in, or Garcia Leah, sorry. Just like the reluctance or the concern would be that this would be disruptive to whatever existing labor negotiations, or what was the, if you could help me understand kind of what your concern was, if we were kind of just going to, assuming the board goes through with it, that these folks would be transferred, in the next 2 or 3 weeks. What's the concern?
So I have 2 concerns. One is exactly that this might be disruptive for the ongoing bargaining process, which we're not a part of and is kept confidential. So I don't know how it's going or how quickly. And, so I hesitate to get involved in anything that could disrupt that in any ways or impact it. That's one thing. And then the second is just the sense amongst the juvenile detention staff that they're not heard, they're not supported, that people like us don't listen and don't care about them, and that this would be seen as an example of that, and that feeling is contributing to the number of people who are waking up in the morning and saying, you know what, forget this, I'm not going in today. So I don't know how significantly it would contribute to that, but it's on my mind. Also, if I have the microphone real fast, I want to go back to the last thing, Chief Patino. There's how many dorms are ready for kids to move into, and how many would fit in that dorm? Because that's an important part of that number.
So there's one cottage that's been that has roller bars affixed. to be totally honest, the cottage numbers tend to flow. So we used to have 8 and 8. It's been diminished because of COVID. Ideally, you'd have 4 and 4. So 4, 8 on one side, 8 on another. So 16. Part of the calculus there, though, is really trying to make sure what sort of works, because it's an open dorm, so the privacy is different. We want the young people to be as comfortable as possible. So trying to figure out what the right balance is may take some time. So ideally, you'd move 4 into one side, see how it goes, and then there may be some flux there as we figure it out.
So
sorry to hijack that.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So, Ms. Bettino, when we have staff currently at Kilpatrick, right? Yeah,
right.
And we don't have any probationers there.
We do. We have 11 young men there.
Okay.
Kids.
And would let's say the hypothetical group that we're contemplating moving, that they be transferred, would the existing staff be able to accommodate those?
In terms of numbers?
Yeah.
We believe so.
So we already have the staffing there, right? Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thanks.
Don, your hand's up again, or is that from, what's going on, Don? You good? Okay. Anyone else? Vice Chair Jackson? Oh, Commissioner Nung, your hand's up. Maybe not. Okay, Wendy, call a roll, please.
Oh, sorry, I was.
Can we restate the motion? Can we restate the motion?
1 second. Commissioner Nung, do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I think just before we restate the motion with any amendments, I just wanted to suggest, I know I hear the recommendation of a range, but I would prefer, again, like some version of a minimum number with no max set. And maybe the language flagging sort of ready. I don't want things to all of a sudden, as a response, someone saying, okay, 0 are ready. So I want people to say identified as ready as of, at a minimum, right, before this date, but then not set a maximum. So that was my recommendation for the motion, but I don't have the language right now to input it, hoping someone else can handle this.
But I got a question before we get into these numbers one last time. Somebody asked about the cottages. You said 16 per cottage based on COVID and so on. But how many cottages are available? Is it just one you're describing, or is it more than one?
So one has roller bars affixed to the tops of them, which was an added security enhancement. There were some other things that other folks had recommended, sheriffs and others. The other cottages are waiting for those roller bars. So at this point, we would have to make a decision to move young people in there without that enhancement. It still has anti-climbing mesh on the fences and things like that. So there's probably at least 3 other cottages that would be available, because there's only 11 young people. So numbers wise, they would be occupying 1 cottage. So there's other cottages available on site.
So 16 times 3 is what you're saying as of right now?
Well, again, I mean, we want to be deliberate. We want to be careful in how we move. But so what we haven't determined with this population is what would the maximum capacity be at Kilpatrick for SYTF. That's something that's sort of been in discussion to determine what would be best at first. But yeah, so conceivably, if we take it at full capacity, you'd have 16 times 3.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, for COVID and a little bit distance, I think we're really looking at 12 and 12, probably more like 12. But again, those numbers are in flux, and we'd have to figure all that out.
Okay, I just don't want to limit who would go there, even though it's really gray about who's ready, who's not ready. Those who either were classified as ready, now they're not ready. So I just don't want to limit that number. So Wendy, if you can keep up with what's been happening with the motion, it might be a good time to read it so we can get a vote.
So I'm hearing a couple of recommendations for amendments to the motion regarding specific numbers. And I think Commissioner Lewis needs to agree to the amendment of that motion, as does Commissioner Garcia as the second. So Commissioner Lewis, what I'm hearing is that it might, the motion might read, well, it could either read, as you said, the Probation Oversight Commission would recommend that the Board of Supervisors take action to send youth identified as ready immediately to Campus Kilpatrick before July 1st. Or we could add into that, it looks like, Janae, it looks like somehow Commissioner Lewis has dropped off the panelist, so he can't unmute himself. Can you help him get back in?
Yes.
So he can hear me, but he can't speak, but he'll be right back. So that we might say the Probation Oversight Commission recommends that the Board of Supervisors require the Probation Department to take immediate action to move a minimum of 4 youth disposition to the secure track to Campus Kilpatrick by July 1st. That incorporates what Commissioner Nong said, but there also was the discussion about possibility of having that as a range. I don't see him back yet. Janae, is that we getting him back?
I'm having the system call him.
Wendy, I think that it would also be nice to add that pilot word in there somewhere. Dominique has her hand up again, Frankie.
Thank you. Commissioner Nunn?
Yeah, I think one thing got lost that I'd love people's thoughts on is, in addition to I would say move at a minimum, if we're going to say 4, but to move at a minimum, the youth determined to be ready as of June 9th, 2022. And then as far as the pilot, I am wary of using that word actually, because it's already been determined to be an SYTF. This isn't a pilot at all. If it's being framed that way because of labor negotiations, that seems to be something that can be handled in discussion versus something in writing. I just fear it's dangerous to call it a pilot officially.
Vice Chair Jackson, what do you think?
I think the word pilot, I mean, although it is relating to the secure track youth, it's specific to the movement of that number of them, and that's where the pilot language would come from. But I'm not exactly sure. And it's not a deal breaker, but I see where Commissioner Nong is coming from. Other commissioners have any thoughts on
We would not use the term pilot.
Okay.
So that muddies then like this is the first step. Maybe instead of pilot, first phase or first step.
I like that.
That way we're not saying, because a pilot can be cut off, but if this is the first phase of 5, and then the second phase is 10, and we phase it in over a period of weeks.
Agreed. Thanks.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Lewis, the next step is for you to agree to the amendment. We're going back and forth here, so I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but whether we include the minimum of 4 youth who have been determined to be ready into the original motion.
I think, yeah, if we lay a floor of minimum number, which 4 is, I'm okay with 4, because and we use the language phase 1 or first phase. This allows us to say the next group can be 5 or 10.
Okay, so I'm now reading it as the Probation Oversight Commission recommends that the board require the probation department to immediately move at a minimum the 4 youth who have been determined to be ready to Campus Kilpatrick by July 1st as phase 1 of what? I don't know. As
Implementation of the
secure track program.
Of the secure track facility program.
Great. Okay, so I'll read it again. The Probation Oversight Commission recommends that the Board of Supervisors require the probation department to take immediate action. Sorry, I have it in different places. The Probation Oversight Commission recommends that the Board of Supervisors require the probation department to take immediate action to move at a minimum the 4 youth who have been determined to be ready to Campus Kilpatrick by July 1st as phase 1 of implementation of the Secure Track Facilities Program.
Yes.
If you agree with that, Commissioner Lewis, then we just need Commissioner Garcia Lays to agree to re-second.
I agree.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Chair Carrillo, can I call the roll?
Please, Wendy.
Okay, please unmute yourself. Commissioner, you're voting yes, no, or abstain. Commissioner Canales?
Yes.
Commissioner Dupuy is absent. Commissioner Garcia Lays?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Nong?
Yes.
Commissioner Yamashiro?
Yes.
Chair Carrillo?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Is there any more discussion or comments, questions on item number 4? I know that the motion took up a lot of time, but Chief Deputy Bettino is still here. Dawes, is that your hand that's still up, or am I? Okay, we're moving on then to item number 5. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chief. We will hear updates from our Executive Director, Wendy Julian, followed by Chief Deputy Adam Bettino from the Probation Department on the progress the department has made towards implementing the LA model pursuant to September 21st, 2021 Board of Supervisors motion regarding reaffirming and expanding the LA model. Wendy, please proceed.
Thank you. I actually just have a quick update with what I consider to be very good news. And I've already discussed this with Chief Bettino, but he can add anything that he finds applicable to it. It's a couple of things. One that was mentioned before, which is that we have received complete confirmation, both from board offices and the probation department, that the LA model continues to be the model that will be utilized at all of the facilities, in particular the post-disposition facilities, meaning the camps and Dorothy Kirby Center, and that the implementation that began at Campus Kilpatrick in 2017 will continue to be implemented, including by some of the same people who implemented it during that original time, to train staff and to allow for camps like Page and Afflerbach, which were specifically called out in the motion that identified the Secure Track site, but also Campus Kilpatrick, which will be the site of the Secure Track youth, to roll out the LA model in ways that are both similar in terms of things that Chief Bettino discussed, like the journaling, and also different as appropriate based on the age of the young people, their reentry needs, and how long they will be staying at the facility, which is very distinct between Secure Track youth and youth who are dispositioned to camp, who their stays are usually either 5 to 7 or 7 to 9 months, as compared to many years that often other youth will be staying in the county. So that is, I think the Probation Oversight Commission will continue to have a role just in updating the community in the process that the department has taken in terms of training and rolling out of the LA model as the camp facilities do so. And then also we are looking very specifically at the impact of the 56-hour work week on the LA model. I am really looking forward to the presentation at the next meeting in 2 weeks, where Dr. Gongora will present her findings and recommendations based on the 56-hour work week, which has some implications on the implementation of the LA model, and we'll be able to talk about that further in 2 weeks. That's all I have on this issue. Chief Bettino, do you have any other comments on this issue?
The only other thing that I wanted to add, and thank you for that, Wendy, that's a good update. And you know, we're forging ahead. So one of the things that's problematic with some of the older facilities is just that they're old, they're open dorm, they're not exactly conducive to rolling the LA model out in the manner that we would hope, like a Campus Kilpatrick or even a Dorothy Kirby Center that has kind of smaller cottages. So, you know, part of our vision moving forward does have to do with facilities. I know that there's a lot of folks who who would argue that we don't want to invest in some of these facilities moving forward. But in order to make them more conducive to something like the LA model, we really believe that a modest amount of investment will need to take place. I've shared this before. These facilities are built in like the 60s. A lot of them, some are in disrepair and would need some modification, at least to the dorms themselves, to make sure that we have a better environment to roll something like this out. You know, this county has not really invested in these facilities aside from Campus Kilpatrick for decades. So it really is something that we want to take on moving forward and longer term when we talk about what can we do to Barry J, what can we do to Page and Alfred Ball, Dorothy Kirby Center, to make them more conducive to creating a transformative and therapeutic space.
Thank you. And as you're saying that, it sounds like that will certainly be rolled into our conversation about strategic planning overall. So I appreciate that. That's the end of the presentation on that item, Chair Carrillo.
Thank you, Wendy. Do you have any written or live public comment to this item?
I don't believe that we had any written public comments on this item. Am I correct about that, Janae?
Yes, that's correct, Wendy.
Okay, we have a couple of folks who are signed up to give live public comment. We'll begin with Marcia McLean. Is Marcia still
Hi,
on?
yes, no, I am still on. I just want to thank you all for the work you're trying to do. I think your hearts are in the right place 100%. And I'm not going to comment necessarily on this item, but I simply just want to say that sometimes people call into these meetings who state things that are not factual about Santa Clarita. And I want to make sure that I'm available, that I am available anytime to bring the facts to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Wendy, I think that, well, I'll hold my comments. Who's up?
Sorry, can you repeat the name, Wendy?
Thomas Bell. Yeah, I see that he has his hand up. Can you see that? Oh, there we go. Mr. Bell, did you want to comment on this?
No, I'm sorry. I left it up.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Mariana Garcia Godoy. I think she has her hand up too. You can begin.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to talk about the LA model, and I think it's a really powerful first step, and probation describes it as a really comprehensive change in prioritizing care to the youth in these facilities. But I also want to talk about how the funding really has not represented that really comprehensive change that the LA model is supposed to represent, and that the $10 million that is funding it right now to implement the model at Barry J is really going towards making the place look better, painting the walls, things like that. And that's really not the comprehensive change that the model purports to deliver. So that's also something that I think that there's a really big gap in the way this program is being described by probation. And I think it's a place where your board has the ability to close that gap and ensure that the way it's being described is actually the way it's being implemented, and that the money is going to, first of all, it's sufficiently funded, and that money is actually going to deliver a standard of care instead of something like facility improvements, which, while much needed, is not the change that is supposed to be brought by this model. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we unmute Jackie Juarez next, please, Janae?
Jackie, you're unmuted.
Jackie, can you hear us? Okay, let's go ahead to Frank Paredes. Frank, do you have a comment on this issue on the LA model?
Hi, good morning, Wendy. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Oh, hi.
It is a comment to the LA model, and in terms of just really dealing with the change and implementation, and really, Wendy, and to the commission, just wanted to invite you. I'm Frank Paredes, an executive board member with PMA, which is 703, one of the three in coalition, and we have yet to have sat down with you, and just want to extend an invite to you to kind of further have a shared vision with regards to some of the priorities that you have, some of our shared priorities, and kind of systematically putting that, conceptualizing the short-term, intermediate, and long-term goals and outcomes. We do talk a lot about the inputs there, the site, location, the effect of the community, but really want to sit down with you and just invite one of your or several commissioners so we can really hear the PMA group really consists, like some of us have born and raised in this career since day one. This is all we've known. Some have spent 35 years of their whole career in multiple ways, in multiple fashions. And we have yet to narrow in on that gap and want to really extend. There's a lot of outputs, right? Considerations in terms of data, performance measures, and other concepts that will help improve our bridge to serve this youth that we truly care about, with all the different types of behaviors and all the potential milestones that can be achieved and celebrated with these short wins and with our evidence-based practices, and along with just other skill sets that I think this discussion or potential discussion with the POC benefits across the board could be generated as we improve our connection, our connectivity, and our commitment and service to the community.
Thank you. And our final commenter will be Nicole Brown. Nicole, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I just wanted to make a couple comments on this. I hope that the Probation Oversight Commission will hear from the people who actually designed the LA model. I feel like this term is just used very empty, and remind folks that about a year ago, the LA Times wrote an editorial talking about how this model was never actually fulfilled. It never actually happened. Want to uplift the importance of education. I believe it was last September, a motion about fulfilling the LA model at Kilpatrick was passed. I haven't really seen anything happen. There was supposed to be a plan about quality education, and there have been no updates on that, and I have not seen any movement or traction on that. Yeah, basically, I invite you all to reread that article, and I don't think there's any reason to believe that anything has changed in this last year, considering the comments I just made around all of the, I guess, wheel spinning that's happened in the last year. So I hope that you all can hear from the actual experts who designed the LA model and actually hear from them as well, from what they feel has been fulfilled and hasn't. Former Probation Commissioner Jackie Hester, I know, has been very involved with this, but I just really invite you to do that. And also just want to reiterate the importance of education, and particularly in light of the SYTF population, providing quality, robust, higher education programming in person with counseling and peer mentors for those young people. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's the end of public comment, Chair Carrillo.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments on item number 5? Let me look at these hands here. I thought I saw one. Yep, Commissioner Nunn.
Thank you. Sorry, I was waffling. Mine's more just a comment or encouragement, which is just that I hope that the probation department, LACO, any of the agencies involved in expanding the LA model, make sure that, again, they look both at the LA Times report, but I know there was an evaluation done by Evident Change in January 2021, sort of evaluated both benefits and also areas of opportunity to fully implement the LA model. So I'm hoping that those will be looked at closely as implementation is carried out, both in Kilpatrick and across the camps.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, seeing no other hands, we'll be moving on to item number 6. And this is directed towards the 2 commissioners and staff. Are there any matters not posted on the agenda to discuss or to place on a future meeting agenda for action? Commissioners, you have for staff, you have anything you want to add?
As we're waiting for people to raise their hands, I'll just say at our next meeting, we expect to have some reports and answers around OC spray use and phase out, as well as the presentation I mentioned on the 56-hour work week schedule.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay. Oh, I see one hand. Commissioner Nunn.
Thank you. I just want to flag to my fellow commissioners, the public probation department, that I want to look closer and may want to bring back for discussion. But I think there are other conversations that need to be had first about some of the issues raised by the BACC. Many were at the meeting before. I didn't get to listen to the rest of it, but I want to follow it closely because the BACC reports showed a real troubling lack of effectiveness and follow through on some of the changes that probation has said they will be making. And given the issues and the responses, I've seen one response from probation that I mirrored was literally paragraphs of copy and pasted from a report back from 3 months earlier. So I'm really concerned that a lot of the probation department's actions are more just to get strict compliance and to get the BACC to stop inspecting versus really putting the youth first. And so I just want to flag to commissioners that I would love, I want to talk to at least staff and maybe some people about the best way to make sure that we don't lose sight of this issue.
Chair Carrillo, I think there's probably a way to put that on the agenda in update on BSEC in collaboration with the move back to central, just kind of a final presentation on that issue as well, since there's a lot of interrelation there. And so we can add that to the agenda.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioner Yamashiro, you're up.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just going to ask that we do that, and I think it might be helpful if we could maybe narrow it. And I don't know who we would be requesting to present, but it would be. I think there were some pretty remarkable departures, or rather failures to comply, or from the basis by which the BSCC found that the central was not suitable. And so it would be, I think the commission should have we should have a full-throated discussion about what the BSCC found, and because I don't know that the probation department responded at the BSCC meeting, but I certainly think that for folks who were not on that meeting, and because we missed the latter part of it, I think we should hear those details.
Thank you. Wendy, is that maybe?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And actually, I don't have a copy of the report that was presented in the meeting today. I'm not sure whether that was intentional or not, but or whether there is a public copy available. But if there is, I will work to obtain it and provide it to the commissioners and publish it with that agenda as well.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, seeing no other hands, we'll be moving on to item number 7, which is an invitation for members of the public to address the commission on items not on the agenda. Wendy, will you please facilitate public comments for us?
I will do so happily. Please raise your hand if you would like to give public comment. You do that by clicking participant, then clicking in the hand. If you're dialing in on the phone, dial *3. Janae, I don't believe we had any written public comment that was general public comment. Is that correct?
That is correct, Wendy.
Okay. All right. So let's start with Frank Paredes. Do you want to make a comment on general public comment on items not on the agenda, or is your hand still up from the last time? Okay. I
believe it's still up from the last time, Wendy, and I really hope that the commission really considers having a deeper, warm discussion, collaborative discussion on many of the key topics that affect our future.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to Danita Beauchamp. Danita, you can begin.
Hello. I just wanted to make a comment about justice must be tempered with mercy, but it also, I'm sorry, I'm trying to drive, so I apologize. It must be tempered with mercy, but it must never lose its sense. I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of the worst traffic right now. I'm sorry. Let me get this. Justice must be tempered with mercy. It must never lose its sense of retribution, but otherwise it's no longer justice. So I think even though everybody who is a part of this program and has participated in meetings, number one is the ultimate care for the youth and do what's best for them, as well as the staff involved. But I think we also have to remember that there are so many rules and regulations that we have to follow that we're almost losing sight of that. And you know, I feel for you. I wouldn't want to be in the hot seat because these people are angry that the youth haven't been transferred. But as someone did say that, you know, there's a rhyme or reason as to why it hasn't been done, and we have to be patient, because otherwise, if we rush to get this done, then I feel like we're just going to create the same situation all over again, that it would be a bad situation for the youth. And so this is more, I think, for other people that are listening, not necessarily the commissioners, because they obviously already know this, but we really need to be patient and try to work the best way that we can by providing other ideas or asking questions and making it a positive situation and environment for these youth. As I've said in previous meetings, you know, I was an inmate at Los Padrinos in 1984, 1985.
Yeah, that's your
And
time. Thank you for coming today. Appreciate it. We're going to move on to Greg Johnson. Greg, you can begin.
Hello, my name is Greg Johnson, and I am a program manager in the Arts Education Division of the Department of Arts and Culture for the County of Los Angeles. Thank you for the informative meeting today, and I do also express my appreciation for all the hard work that the POC is putting in. I would like to suggest that a discussion be added to a future agenda around what is currently being offered through Juvenile Justice Crime and Prevention Act funding for SYTF youth at BJN, as well as having those same services follow youth to CBK. And we, just so you know, have at least 7 providers now delivering services, including Homeboy Art Academy, Inside Out Writers, Tia Chuch's Cultural Center, the Actors Gang, Boyle Heights Arts Conservatory, and the Arts for Healing and Justice Network. So there is a very, I would say, robust conversation currently in place about how to serve SYTF youth in a way that exceeds and improves upon the current model that we've been putting in place for the past 5 years for secure facilities and juvenile day reporting centers. And if it would be the wish of the Probation Oversight Commission to provide some time just to look at all of the different kinds of things that your sister department, Arts and Culture, is doing, and the intense amount of design work, curriculum work, and other kinds of measures that we're taking to provide a larger number and a better number of services to SYTF youth. I think that would be very helpful in going forward. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here, Greg. And I'm going to ask Janae to send you Dr. Reynoso's email in the chat so that you two can connect. And I'm certain she will want to talk about that with you. And next up, we have Cookie Lamel. Welcome, Cookie. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Cookie Lamel. I am with Local 685, the Probation Officers Union. And one of the things that I noticed when I first came here, which was back in 2010, I did a project where I kind of took a look at all of the history of this probation department. This department has been in operation over 100 years. And for many, many of those years, it was considered the best probation department in the world. People came here from every place to learn our methods and the skills that our officers had. And I'm wondering each time I listen to what people are saying where this all fits these days, because there were always ups and downs with things with the skill development and training and different things that happened with this department, but it was always considered the best. I've looked at some of the older archives that talk about exactly what we're talking about, including, it was interesting, she mentioned the model, the LA model, which was actually a part of the Missouri model. And as I'm sitting here doing some additional research, I see they're having all kinds of problems. So we've always come up with a very good direction that we were going in that worked out to be very well for the young people here. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for joining us today, Cookie. Next up, and this, I believe this will be our last comment, we have Mariana Garcia Godoy. Mariana, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to request, as conversations continue about transfers out of Berry J and Central, that there be like a real analysis onto the metric of readiness and what that, I understand that there are nonprofit groups working to assist the county in determining that, but at the same time, there's also, I think, a sentiment that a lot of the behavior that might be a result of these really traumatic and dangerous conditions are actually a reason to keep them in these conditions. And so I think that really needs to be a question of whether that's being considered and why there might be any reason, if someone is responding to their environment, that is a reason to continue to keep them in a really dangerous and unsafe place. So really breaking down that metric so we can ensure that the determination is fair and just.
Thank you for that as our last word with public comment tonight. Well, actually, we've got one hand that just went up, Chair Carrillo. We got 2 minutes left in our time, so we'll go with Christina Fitz. Christina, you can begin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Fitz, and I'm currently a case manager at the Children's Law Center in Monterey Park. This is my first time actually on this call. I was invited from another meeting, but I just want to make a comment. Is that I think that we have a lot of people of power in a lot of these conversations and meetings that are making decisions for young people, and we're missing young people out of the conversation and what they want. And so what I would challenge everybody to is to start including some of these young people who are locked up and find out what is it that they need, what is it that we can do as change makers to make them feel that they are part of the community, even though they are in part of the Juvenile Justice Center, and what resources and services can we put in place so when they do go to these camps that they are able, when they come out, that they have certain skills, whether it's mental health skills, trauma-informed care skills, so that they can adapt back into society and become whole again, and also give them some resources. And I think they need to be and know what's going on. We have a lot of movement, a lot of things that are going on the news about camps closing, things are opening up, and young people don't know what's happening to them. They're just being switched around from one facility to a next facility. So I think having somebody include them or just update them on what's going on with their placement is very important with their recovery process in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, and I promise that wasn't an intended commercial, Frankie, but if you'd like to watch the town hall from Monday, it's on our YouTube page. Dr. Reynoso did such an incredible job of bringing together young people's voices and hearing about that. So on the website, on the YouTube page, and Oscar has raised his hand. Oscar Canales, you have 2 minutes.
Hello. Hi, my name is Oscar Canales. I'm with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition and Los Angeles Youth Uprising. First off and foremost, thank you so much to the POC. Thank you to the community members, and thank you for everyone here present on this call. I think that this is the way we should do it, be able to come in community. There'll be disagreements, there'll be agreements, but the good thing is the good intentions. The good intentions are for the youth, to be able to advocate and speak up for those that can't speak for themselves. I sat on a meeting yesterday, the Heart of YJR, and we went around the room and we were speaking about the yes teams and who should be included on these yes teams. And we spoke highly about families should be included and also people that the youth trust. And some notes here is that a big issue is that currently is that a lot of staff aren't showing up to work because of the union protections that are there in place. A lot of young people are reflecting there's no programming, and the SYTF youth are stressing out because they are in the compound 2 to 3 months with no word about their transfers. It's very overwhelming to the youth to be placed in these situations that are harmful. How bad the probation department is. They have a lot of union protections. They have union protections that protect them from being fired for not showing up to work. And also, currently, we're speaking a lot about education. But one thing I want to speak about personally, when I got my education, I received my high school diploma. I got some college courses. But once I was released into the community, it was nothing compared to the college level readiness that was given to the community folks. So if we're speaking about education, we should get good quality education. We should give these kids, these young adults, high school teachers, not middle school teachers for high school students, and we should give them the good quality service all around. We should teach the students about their prereqs. We should teach them about financial aid while being in the care. We should also ensure that the youth are always placed center. Even I've always advocated for a town hall
That's
for
your
these youth.
time, Oscar. Thank you very much for being here today. And with that, Chair Carrillo, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Wendy, and thank you all for the comments. As a quick reminder, be sure to follow us on social media at LA County POC. Also subscribe to our new YouTube channel by searching Probation Oversight Commission and clicking subscribe to receive reminders about our upcoming meetings. Visit our website at poc.lacounty.gov to subscribe to our email listing. It is now 2:33 p.m. and I adjourn this meeting. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.